Take your CJ7 all the way to 11. Jeepin' with cool guy.
Now let's go to the engine components, because I want to start taking off the fenders. I want to start taking off body panels. I need to take off the horn, disconnect all the pieces that are connected to this actual fender. I need to take off the radiator overflow. Hopefully yours has the tank for the washer fluid. Mine doesn't. There's also usually an evap canister in here. Mine has been removed. I'm going to be putting that back in, but I got to take these things off first. This thing is all the way down at the bottom. Now let's take off the actual vessel. These are 7/16 screws. Of course, there's also a nut on the inside of the fender. Underneath the washer tank, or the coolant tank, is the ECM. Yeah, the electronic control module, or whatever you want to call it. Basically, the ignition control box. Apparently there's 3 bolts, 3 nuts. Slide it over. Slide it out. Here's a little ECM, but I'm going to go from the inside of the fender and take off this bolt and that bolt. There are 2 more bolts inside the wheel well. One is right underneath here. That is still 3/8. And then there's another one right below that that connects with the actual fender support to the firewall. That is 1/2 inch. So I'm going to take out the 3/8, and then while I'm down there I'm going to take out the 1/2 inch, because we will ultimately want to take out the support piece too. Okay, took out the last bolt underneath there. Boy, that thing is, that's interesting. It's sealed up with some kind of an epoxy. Huh. I guess that basically weatherproofs it. So I'm going to disconnect the harnesses right here, make sure I label them, and take out the ECM, or the ignition control module. Yeah, I guess it would be the computer, because ECM would be emissions control module. I don't think that controls that. I think that controls the actual ignition. Just to get it out of the way, need to remove the radiator overflow hose. This is held in by a little loop clamp here. Once that comes off, you can get the whole thing out of the way. Actually take it all the way around and completely disconnect it. Horn is held in by a single screw. It's not a bolt. There's nothing on the inside of the fender. The horn is now removable. Flip it over, disconnect. Horn is now removed. Make sure you label this, and make sure you keep track of the screw that goes with it. Tag and bag, people. Last but not least, as far as the non-structural pieces go, we need to take off the side marker lights. This consists of 2 screws that is part of a wire harness that goes through the inside. Don't know how to actually get this taken off, because there's no connectors between here and inside of the grill. So let's see. It says remove with an arrow on it. Alright, let's follow instructions. Lefty-loosey. It looks like about a 1/4 of a turn, and then it releases. So just nice and slowly back it off. Pop this inside. Now we can go into the structural pieces. There's, I think, 2 bolts, 3 bolts on the inside here that connect it to the grill. And there's 2 support pieces back here that are bolted in. And then there's 4 bolts that connect the fender to the cowl. I'm going to give this a try, see how it goes. Oh, there's 1. Essentially, I want to do with the breaker bar is just to get moving. If I can do that, then I've broken the seal. There we go. That's been released. Cool. Let's see if I can get this last one down here. Alright, got those two released. Enough to make them movable. Let's see if I can take these out now with the impact. Going down underneath. Okay, just a nut. As I've taken off some of the bolts and nuts, like the nuts here go to the firewall supports. These go to the fender support, and these are the fender to cowl bolts. 4 of these. Interestingly enough, they're all interchangeable. So these nuts that came off of the firewall support fit these screws. These screws fit, or these nuts fit these screws fit those nuts. So they're all interchangeable, so it doesn't look like you can really screw this up all that much. There's 3 bolts, 1, 2, 3, that take off the front part of this fender from the grill. And I think after that we should be good to go. Incoming! One last little tiny support piece right down here. Little loop connector that goes into the firewall, so you need to squeeze it from the inside and push it through. Make sure you take care of that, because that's actually a fuel line. I almost took this thing off and tried to pull it off with the fuel line on there. Wouldn't have been good. Here we go. I guess I'm not going anywhere just yet. Alright, just pulled this out. You got one of these on the inside here that apparently was supposed to be holding it on to something. I don't know if it was or not. When I put this thing back together, I'll take note of that. Here we go. Pull up the wiring harness. And we have released the fender! Well, as with every project, the first part takes forever and the second part takes a quarter of the time. So let's take off the passenger side fender. I'm only going to show you a couple pieces of this because pretty much it's the exact same as the other one. Apparently, to completely remove the battery tray, you have to take off this sensor block. These are 2 5/16 inch screws. Once you remove those, and all the other nuts and bolts that go with the battery tray comes right out. Now the vapor canister needs to be removed. We need to up to 3/8 screw. There's 2 screws that go into the firewall. You can just remove these vacuum tubes. Pop those off nice and easy. They're 2 different sizes, so you're not going to mix them up. Looks like an oil can, completely rusted out. I want to give you one final look at this thing before we take it off. This goes down to, this is the grounding wire that goes right into the starter. This is the red wire is the lead that goes right up to the positive lead on your battery. So your battery positive lead comes right through here. This goes right through into your starter motor. This, from what I can tell, goes to the coil, the starter coil. This, I don't know yet. I haven't been able to track this yet. I'll have to figure out where that winds up going. And then these 2 pieces down here, I'm not really quite sure what's going on. The previous owner had done something rather interesting. So this has got, let's see, what is this? Is a thick red wire. So I'm assuming this goes maybe over to the ignition control. And then this other one, which are both connected to the positive lead underneath here. This one here goes to the alternator. Make sure you document all this. Just took out the last bolt, got the last harness unhitched. Here we go. Gotta love that sound. Rust just falling all over the place. That's great. Feed your wire harness, like side marker wire harness through. Get out of the way. Cool!